The 19-year-old mother sits in the homeless shelter, holding her baby one last time. "I watched from across the street," Rebecca whispers, "made sure the garbage truck was coming." The man who found the infant in the dumpster stands frozen. 7-year-old Emma steps forward. "You put her where my daddy would find her, didn't you?" Before we dive in, comment where in the world you are watching from and don't forget to click subscribe. The crying was so faint that Marcus Thompson almost missed it over the mechanical groan of the garbage truck's compactor. He paused, his hand on the lever, listening through the pre-dawn darkness of the alley behind Riverside Medical Complex. There it was again, a sound that made his chest tighten with recognition. He'd heard that cry before, years ago, when his own daughter Emma was an infant. But Emma was 7 now, safe in their apartment with Mrs. Rodriguez watching her while he worked his route. This cry was coming from inside the industrial dumpster he was about to empty. Marcus dropped the lever and ran to the dumpster, his work boots splashing through puddles from last night's rain. He hauled himself up on the metal edge, his flashlight cutting through the darkness. What he saw made his heart stop. There, nestled among medical waste bags and cardboard boxes, wrapped in a thin hospital blanket, was a baby. A newborn, probably hours old, with a shock of dark hair and skin turning blue from the cold October morning. Without thinking, Marcus vaulted into the dumpster, his hands shaking as he carefully lifted the infant. The baby was so small, so light, like holding a bird. The crying stopped as soon as Marcus tucked the child against his chest, inside his reflective work jacket, sharing his body heat. The baby's eyes opened briefly, unfocused but alive, definitely alive. Get to the hospital. That was all Marcus could think. The very hospital whose dumpster he'd just pulled this child from. He climbed out awkwardly, protecting the baby with one arm, and ran toward the emergency entrance. His partner, Joey, was still in the truck, probably wondering what was taking so long, but there was no time to explain. The automatic doors whooshed open, and Marcus burst into the bright fluorescent light of the ER. His appearance, a garbage man in dirty coveralls clutching a newborn, causing immediate chaos. "I found this baby in your dumpster," he said, his voice cracking. "In the dumpster behind the building. She needs help." The baby was a girl, he'd noticed, though he didn't know why that detail mattered. Nurses descended immediately, taking the infant from his arms with professional efficiency. Someone was asking him questions. Where exactly? What time? Did he see anyone? But Marcus could barely focus. All he could think about was how close he'd come to hitting that compactor lever. 30 seconds later, and this child would have been gone. A doctor appeared, a woman with kind eyes behind wire-rimmed glasses. "Mr. Thompson, I'm Dr. Sarah Chen. The baby appears stable, cold, and dehydrated but stable. You saved her life." Marcus sank into a plastic chair, his legs suddenly unable to hold him. "Who throws away a baby?" he asked, not really expecting an answer. "Who does that?" Dr. Chen sat beside him, her expression troubled. "It happens more than you'd think. Young mothers, desperate situations. We'll have to involve child services and the police, of course. They'll want your statement. But right now, that little girl is alive because of you." Marcus thought of Emma, safe at home, and felt tears burn his eyes. He'd been 23 when Emma was born, her mother disappearing 2 weeks later, leaving him with an infant and no idea how to be a father. But throwing her away had never crossed his mind, not for a second. "Can I see her?" he asked. "The baby? I just need to know she's really okay." Dr. Chen hesitated, then nodded. "Come with me." The NICU was a world of machines and tiny beds, premature lives fighting for their chance. The baby he'd found was in an incubator now, wires monitoring her vital signs, a tiny knit cap on her head. She looked even smaller under the medical equipment, but her color was better, pink instead of blue. "She's about 3 days old," Dr. Chen explained. "Full-term healthy weight. Someone's been caring for her until very recently. The blanket she was wrapped in is from our maternity ward." Marcus stared at the hospital logo on the blanket he hadn't noticed before. She was born here? Most likely. We're checking records now. The implications made Marcus feel sick. Someone had given birth in this hospital, held this baby, then walked out and threw her away like medical waste. He pressed his palm against the incubator's plastic wall, wishing he could comfort the child inside. What happens to her now? Foster care eventually, once she's medically cleared, unless family comes forward, but given the circumstances, that seems unlikely. She'll be placed with a temporary emergency foster family first, then into the system. The system. Marcus knew about the system. His own childhood had been a series of foster homes after his mother's overdose when he was 8. Some good, some terrible, all temporary. The baby's tiny hand moved, fingers spreading like a starfish before curling again into a fist. She was fighting, this thrown-away child. Fighting to live, to matter, to exist in a world that had already tried to erase her. "I want to help," Marcus heard himself say. "There must be something I can do." Dr. Chen looked surprised. "Mr. Thompson, you've already done more than enough. You saved her life." "That's not enough," Marcus said, surprising himself with his vehemence. "She deserves more than just being saved. She deserves to be wanted." Before Dr. Chen could respond, Marcus's phone rang. Joey, wondering where he'd disappeared to with the truck. Marcus had to get back to work, had to finish his route. He had bills to pay, Emma to support. But leaving that baby felt wrong, like abandoning her all over again. "I have to go," he said reluctantly. "But can I come back? To check on her?" Dr. Chen smiled. "I don't see why not. You're the hero of her story, after all. Visiting hours are 9 to 8. Ask for the baby doe in NICU. Baby doe. Not even a name. Just a placeholder for a person someone had tried to throw away." Marcus returned to his truck, where Joey was waiting with a mixture of annoyance and concern. "Dude, where did you go?" "We're behind schedule," Marcus explained as they resumed their route. But Joey, 22 and childless, couldn't really understand the impact. "It's crazy, man, but child services will handle it. Not our problem anymore." Except it was Marcus's problem. Or at least it felt that way. Every dumpster they emptied for the rest of their route, he thought about what else might be hidden inside. Every piece of trash they collected represented something someone wanted to disappear. But a baby shouldn't disappear. A baby should matter. When his shift ended at 2 p.m., Marcus picked up Emma from after-school care. She chattered about her day, a spelling test she'd aced, a boy who'd pulled her braids at recess, the art project they were starting tomorrow. Normal 7-year-old concerns that felt like blessings after the morning's trauma. "Daddy, you're not listening," Emma accused. And she was right. His mind was back in that dumpster, back with that baby who had no one to pick her up from anywhere. "Honey," Marcus said carefully, "what would you think about us visiting a baby in the hospital? A baby who's sick and doesn't have anyone to visit her?" Emma's face lit up. "A real baby? Like a tiny new baby? Can we bring her presents? Is she very sick? Will she get better?" Marcus explained as simply as he could, leaving out the worst details. Emma listened with the serious attention she brought to important matters, then declared, "We have to visit her, Daddy. Everyone needs visitors when they're in the hospital. Remember when I had my tonsils out? You stayed with me the whole time." So that evening, after dinner and homework, Marcus and Emma returned to the hospital. He'd stopped at the gift shop, letting Emma pick out a small stuffed elephant and a pink blanket, spending money he couldn't really afford, but unable to walk in empty-handed. The NICU nurses recognized him from the morning, and after checking with Dr. Chen, allowed them in. Emma was immediately fascinated by all the babies, but when they reached Baby Doe's incubator, she grew quiet. "She's so small," Emma whispered. "Was I that small?" "You were a little bigger," Marcus said, remembering Emma as a newborn, how terrified he'd been that he'd break her. "But yes, all babies start out tiny." "Why doesn't she have a name?" Emma asked, reading the label on the incubator. "Baby Doe isn't a real name." Marcus struggled to explain. "She doesn't have parents to name her yet. The nurses just call her Baby Doe until someone adopts her." Emma considered this, then announced, "That's stupid. Everyone needs a name. We should call her something pretty while we visit." "Like what, baby?" Marcus asked, charmed by his daughter's straightforward solution to complex problems. Emma studied the baby through the plastic, her face scrunched in concentration. "Hope," she decided, "because you found her and gave her hope. And because I hope she gets a really good family. Hope. It wasn't official, wouldn't go on any documents, but it was better than baby dough. Marcus found himself agreeing. Hope it is. They stayed for an hour, Emma talking to Hope through the incubator, telling her about second grade, about their apartment, about the park where they fed ducks on Sundays. The baby slept through it all, but Emma didn't mind. She assigned Marcus to hold the stuffed elephant where Hope could see it when she woke up. A nurse named Patricia watched them with soft eyes. "You know," she said quietly to Marcus while Emma was absorbed in her one-sided conversation, "this baby hasn't had any visitors except you. The police came, child services came, but no one just to visit. No one to care. It means something, you being here." Marcus didn't know what to say to that. He was just a garbage man who'd been in the right place at the right time. Or the wrong place, depending on how you looked at it. But watching Emma with Hope, seeing how naturally his daughter had accepted this abandoned baby as someone worth caring about, he felt something shifting in his chest. They came back the next evening, and the next. It became their routine. Pick Emma up from school, homework, dinner, hospital. Emma had started drawing pictures for Hope, taping them to the incubator with the nurse's permission, bright crayon drawings of houses and sons and families holding hands. On the fourth night, they arrived to find a woman in an expensive suit standing by Hope's incubator. She turned when they entered, her expression professionally neutral. "Mr. Thompson? I'm Janet Morrison from Child Protective Services. I understand you're the one who found this infant." Marcus felt Emma's hand tighten in his. "Yes, ma'am, we've been visiting. Making sure she's okay." Ms. Morrison's expression softened slightly. "The nurses have mentioned that. It's very kind of you. I'm here to inform you that we've found an emergency placement for the baby. She'll be transferred to a foster home tomorrow once she's medically cleared." Emma made a small sound of distress. "But we just started visiting her. She knows us now. She needs us." "Sweetheart," the social worker said gently, "the baby needs a permanent home, a family who can take care of her full time." "We're a family," Emma said stubbornly. "Daddy takes good care of me. He could take care of Hope too." Marcus felt his face flush. "Emma, honey, it's not that simple. I'm a single dad. I work full time. We live in a 2-bedroom apartment. I'm not qualified to be a foster parent." Ms. Morrison studied them for a moment. "Mr. Thompson, have you considered applying to be a foster parent? The process isn't as impossible as you might think, especially given your unique connection to this child." The idea had been lurking in Marcus's mind for days, but hearing it voiced made it real and terrifying. "I can't afford another child," he said honestly. "I barely make ends meet with Emma." "Foster parents receive support," Ms. Morrison said. "Financial assistance, medical coverage for the child, resources. If you're interested, I could give you the information, but the placement tomorrow will proceed unless something changes." That night, Marcus couldn't sleep. He stood in Emma's doorway, watching her sleep with the stuffed animals she'd arranged in a protective circle around her. She'd been so small once, so vulnerable. He'd been terrified every day for the first year. Sure, he'd fail her. Sure, he wasn't enough. But they'd made it work. They'd become a family, just the two of them against the world. Could they make room for one more? A baby who'd already been thrown away once, who deserved better than bouncing through foster homes like he had. The next morning, before his shift, Marcus called the number Ms. Morrison had given him. The woman who answered, Patricia Colbert, listened to his story with interest. "Mr. Thompson, given your connection to the infant and your stable employment and housing, we could fast-track an emergency foster placement while you complete the full certification process. But I need to be clear, this is a significant commitment." "I understand," Marcus said, though he wasn't sure he did. How could anyone really understand taking in a stranger's baby, a child someone had literally thrown away? But then he thought about finding her in that dumpster, about Emma talking to her through the incubator, about Hope deserving better than the system that had failed him as a child. "I want to try." The process moved faster than he expected. Within hours, Patricia was at his apartment, inspecting Emma's room, checking smoke detectors, asking about his work schedule, his support system, his experience with infants. Mrs. Rodriguez from next door vouched for him, talking about how she'd watched him raise Emma alone. What a devoted father he was. Emma's teacher, contacted by phone, praised Marcus's involvement in Emma's education despite his work schedule. By afternoon, the emergency placement was approved, pending a home study and background check. When Marcus picked Emma up from school, she could tell something was different. "You look nervous, Daddy, like when you had to talk to my teacher about the fire alarm incident. That wasn't my fault, and we agreed not to mention it again," Marcus said, but he was smiling. "Emma, how would you feel about Hope coming to live with us? Not forever, not yet, but for a while? To see if we can be her family?" Emma's shriek of joy probably violated several noise ordinances. "Really, really, really? She can share my room. I'll teach her everything. Can we paint it pink? Do babies like pink?" Marcus laughed, feeling lighter than he had in days. "We'll figure it out together, baby. We always do." They went to the hospital together to meet with Miss Morrison and Dr. Chen. There was paperwork, so much paperwork, but also practical preparation. Dr. Chen explained Hope's needs, still minimal at her age but crucial. Formula feeding, sleep schedules, signs to watch for given her traumatic start. "She's healthy," Dr. Chen assured them. "No drugs in her system, no serious medical issues. She just needs love and stability." "Love we've got covered," Emma announced confidently. "And Daddy's super stable. He's worked the same job for 5 years and we've lived in the same apartment forever, and he never even forgets parent-teacher conferences." The adults all smiled at her earnest endorsement. Marcus signed paper after paper, each signature feeling like a promise. To Hope, to Emma, to himself. He was really doing this, taking in a baby he'd found in the trash, making her part of their small family. It was insane. It was probably a mistake. It was absolutely the right thing to do. 2 days later, after the final clearances came through, Marcus and Emma arrived at the hospital to take Hope home. Home. The word felt different now, bigger somehow. The nurses had gathered to say goodbye, each of them having grown attached to the baby and her faithful visitors. Patricia, the nurse, handed Marcus a diaper bag they'd put together. "Just some basics to get you started. There's a list of what you'll need. The formula she's been taking, diapers, clothes. It's a lot, I know." Marcus looked at the list, calculating costs in his head. He'd already talked to his supervisor about adjusting his schedule, starting earlier so he could be home when Emma got out of school. Mrs. Rodriguez had offered to watch Hope during his work hours for far less than regular daycare would cost. They could make it work. They had to. Emma was practically vibrating with excitement as Dr. Chen lifted Hope from the incubator for the last time as baby dough. The pink blanket Emma had picked out was wrapped around her, the elephant tucked beside her. She was awake, dark eyes blinking in the bright light, tiny fist waving in the air. "Would you like to hold her?" Dr. Chen asked Emma. Emma looked at Marcus with wonder. "Can I?" Marcus helped position Emma in a chair, showing her how to support Hope's head, how to hold her secure but gentle. The moment Hope settled into Emma's arms, both girls seemed to sigh. Emma looked up at Marcus with tears in her eyes. "She's really ours now?" "Foster placement," Marcus reminded her gently. "We're taking care of her while the courts figure everything out. But yes, she's coming home with us." Emma looked down at Hope, who was staring up at her with those unfocused newborn eyes. "Hi, Hope," Emma whispered. "I'm your big sister Emma. You're gonna love our house. It's small but cozy, and Daddy makes really good pancakes, and we have a park with ducks, and I'm gonna teach you everything about everything." The drive home was surreal. Marcus had installed the car seat the night before, following YouTube tutorials and double-checking every strap. Hope was so tiny in it, like a doll in a throne. Emma sat beside her in the back, maintaining a running commentary about everything they passed. "That's the grocery store, where Daddy buys our food. That's my school. You'll go there when you're bigger. That's the mean dog that barks at everyone, but he's actually scared of butterflies." Hope slept through it all, but Emma didn't mind. She was taking her big sister duties seriously already. Their apartment building looked different to Marcus as they pulled up. Shabbier maybe, or just more aware of its limitations. The elevator that was out of service more often than not. The hallway that always smelled faintly of someone's cooking. The sounds of other families living their lives through thin walls. Was this good enough for a baby? For hope? But then he remembered his own childhood. The foster homes that looked nice from the outside, but were cold inside. Love mattered more than square footage. Safety mattered more than luxury. And they had both of those things in abundance. Mrs. Rodriguez was waiting at their door, practically bouncing with excitement. She'd raised 4 children of her own and now helped with grandchildren when her daughter needed her. The moment she saw Hope, she melted. Ay, que pequeñita. So tiny. Bring her inside, bring her inside. Let me see this angel you saved. The apartment had been transformed in small ways. Emma had cleaned her room meticulously, making space for the second-hand crib they'd bought from a thrift store. She'd arranged her stuffed animals on a shelf, explaining to each one that they had to be good examples for the baby. Marcus had baby-proofed what he could, though Hope wouldn't be mobile for months. The preparation felt like a ritual, a way of making space in their lives for this unexpected addition. That first night was a revelation. Marcus had forgotten the relentless cycle of newborn care. Every 2 hours, Hope needed feeding. Every 3 hours, a diaper change. She didn't cry much, which worried him more than if she'd been screaming. Was she too traumatized to cry? Too weak? But the pediatrician on the emergency foster care hotline assured him that some babies were just quiet, especially in the first weeks. Just keep feeding her, holding her, talking to her. She needs to learn that when she needs something, someone will come. Emma insisted on helping with the 2 a.m. feeding, stumbling out of bed with her hair wild and her pajamas twisted. She sat beside Marcus on the couch, holding the bottle while he supported Hope's head. "This is hard," Emma observed with typical honesty. "You did this with me all by yourself." "Every night for months," Marcus confirmed, remembering those exhausted early days when he'd been sure he was doing everything wrong. "You cried a lot more than Hope does. And you had this thing where you'd only sleep if I was walking around. I wore a path in the carpet." Emma looked at Hope with new respect. "We're lucky you're easier, baby Hope. Because Daddy's older now and probably can't walk around all night anymore." Marcus laughed softly, not wanting to wake the neighbors. "Thanks for the reminder that I'm ancient." But Emma was already focused back on Hope, whispering a story about a brave princess who was found in a forest and became the greatest queen ever. Even at 2 a.m., even exhausted, she was committed to being the best big sister possible. The first week passed in a blur of bottles and diapers, but by the second week, they'd found their rhythm. Marcus adjusted his route schedule, starting at 4 a.m. instead of 5, finishing in time to relieve Mrs. Rodriguez before Emma got home from school. His supervisor, Tony, a gruff man with his own complicated family story, had been surprisingly accommodating. "You saved a baby from my trucks," Tony had said. "Least I can do is give you some flexibility. Besides, you're my best driver. Never missed a day in 5 years until this." The other guys on the crew had taken up a collection, presenting Marcus with an envelope of cash and a card signed by everyone. "For the baby stuff," Joey had explained, looking embarrassed by the gesture. "We all chipped in. Even Crazy Mike, and he never gives money for nothing." The money helped more than they could know. Formula was expensive. Diapers disappeared at an alarming rate, and Hope needed clothes that actually fit instead of drowning in Emma's old baby things that Marcus had hopefully saved. But it was the gesture that moved him, these tough men who hauled garbage for a living, showing they cared about a baby they'd never met. 2 weeks into the placement, Marcus got a call from Ms. Morrison. "We've had a development in Hope's case. Can you come to my office this afternoon? Bring the baby." Marcus's stomach dropped. Were they taking Hope away? Had someone come forward to claim her? He picked up Emma from school early, both of them tense as they drove to the Child Services building with Hope sleeping in her car seat. Ms. Morrison's office was cramped and cluttered. Files stacked on every surface. She smiled when she saw them, which Marcus took as a good sign. "Thank you for coming. Please sit. I have some news about Hope's biological mother." Marcus held his breath. Emma grabbed his hand. "We've identified her," Miss Morrison continued. "A 19-year-old named Rebecca Palmer. She was admitted to Riverside Medical 3 days before you found Hope, gave birth alone, and left against medical advice the next day. She's been located at a youth shelter downtown." Marcus felt Emma's grip tighten. Does she want Hope back?" Ms. Morrison's expression was complicated. "She's agreed to meet with you. It's unusual, but given the circumstances and your emergency placement, the judge thinks it might be helpful. She wants to see who's caring for her baby." The meeting was scheduled for the next day at the shelter. Marcus dressed carefully, wanting to look responsible but not like he was trying too hard. Emma insisted on coming, wearing her best dress and carrying a folder of her drawings for Hope. They brought Hope, of course, dressed in a little pink outfit Emma had picked out with her saved allowance money. The shelter was a converted church in a part of town Marcus usually only saw from his truck. Young people, mostly teenagers, lingered on the steps and in the common room. Rebecca Palmer was waiting in a small counseling room, and Marcus's first thought was how young she looked. Thin, pale, with hollow eyes and blonde hair that needed washing. She looked like she'd aged a decade in 19 years. When she saw Hope, something broke in her expression. She made an aborted movement forward, then pulled back, wrapping her arms around herself instead. "She's bigger," Rebecca said, her voice barely a whisper. "She looks good. Healthy." Marcus found his anger evaporating in the face of this broken child, because that's what she was, barely more than a child herself. "She's doing great, gaining weight, sleeping better. She's a good baby." Rebecca's eyes filled with tears. "I held her for 2 days, in the hospital. I really tried, but I kept seeing my mom's face every time I looked at her. My mom used to say I ruined her life by being born. Said if it wasn't for me, she could have finished school, could have been somebody. I couldn't do that to her, to Hope, but I couldn't do the adoption papers either. So I panicked." Emma stepped forward, surprising everyone. "You put her where my daddy would find her, didn't you? You knew the garbage truck came early. You wrapped her up warm and put her where someone would hear her." Rebecca looked at this 7-year-old with surprise. "I watched from across the street, made sure the truck was coming. I didn't want her to die. I just wanted her to have a chance. The chance I never got. My mom threw me away over and over, just never literally." Marcus felt his anger transform into something more complex. "You're in the shelter system?" "Have been since I was 14. Age out next month with no plan, no family, nothing. Found out I was pregnant too late to do anything about it. The father was just some guy, doesn't even know. I thought maybe I could do it, be better than my mom. But when I held her, all I could think was how I'd mess her up just like I was messed up." "You wouldn't," Emma said with the confidence only children possess. "You already love her. That's why you made sure my daddy found her." "Love isn't always enough, kid," Rebecca said sadly. "Sometimes babies need more than love. They need stability and food and someone who doesn't hear their mother's voice saying they're worthless every time they cry." "But you're not your mother," Marcus heard himself say. "You made sure Hope would be safe. That's already different. That's already love." Rebecca looked at him with desperate hope. "You'll take care of her? You'll be good to her?" "She's been safe with us," Marcus said carefully. "My daughter Emma loves her like a real sister. We're not rich, but we have enough. Hope will always have what she needs." Rebecca studied them for a long moment, this garbage man and his earnest daughter, holding the baby she'd carried for 9 months and held for 2 days. "Can I hold her? Just once more?" Marcus hesitated, then carefully transferred Hope to Rebecca's arms. The teenager held her baby with infinite care, tears rolling down her face as Hope opened her eyes and seemed to look right at her. "Hi, baby," Rebecca whispered. I'm so sorry I'm not strong enough to be your mama. But these people, they are strong enough. They found you when I threw you away, and that's got to mean something, right? That's got to be like fate or whatever." "Will you sign the papers?" Ms. Morrison asked gently. "Termination of parental rights, so Hope can be eligible for adoption." Rebecca nodded, still looking at Hope. "On one condition. I want her to know she was loved, not thrown away because she wasn't wanted, but given up because she was loved enough to deserve better." "Can you tell her that someday?" When she's old enough to understand? We promise, Emma said solemnly. We'll tell her you loved her too much to let her have less than the best. Rebecca kissed Hope's forehead, then handed her back to Marcus. Her name is Hope? I didn't name her. Couldn't make her real if I named her. But hope is good. Hope is what I'm giving her. A chance to hope for better than what I had. The papers were signed that afternoon. Rebecca Palmer, 19 years old, 3 weeks postpartum, signed away her rights to the child she'd carried and birthed, and left for the garbage man to find. As they left the shelter, Emma was quiet. Finally, she said, "That was really sad, Daddy, but also kind of beautiful. Like Rebecca loved Hope so much she gave her to us." Marcus thought about his own mother, who'd loved drugs more than him, who'd never given him up but never truly kept him either. Sometimes love looks different than we expect, baby. Sometimes it looks like letting go. The adoption process officially began the next week. Marcus met with lawyers, social workers, and judges, all while maintaining his work schedule and caring for 2 children. The home study was extensive, examining every aspect of their lives. The social worker, a different one this time named Carol, spent hours in their apartment, observing their routines, watching them interact, reviewing Marcus's finances with a fine-tooth comb. "You're doing this alone," Carol observed one evening, watching Marcus juggle dinner preparation while Hope fussed and Emma did homework. "No partner, no family support beyond the neighbor. Doesn't it concern you, taking on this responsibility?" Marcus paused in stirring the spaghetti sauce. "I've been alone since Emma's mom left 7 years ago, but we're not really alone. We have Mrs. Rodriguez, we have each other, and now we have Hope. Family isn't always about how many adults are in the house. It's about showing up every day, no matter how tired you are or how hard it gets." Carol made notes, her expression unreadable. Emma looked up from her math worksheet. "Besides, Ms. Carroll, Daddy's really good at being alone but not lonely. He taught me that. You can be by yourself but still feel full of love. That's what Hope needs, to feel full of love even when things aren't perfect." The weeks turned into months. Hope grew from a tiny newborn into an alert infant who smiled at the sound of Emma's voice and reached for Marcus's face when he leaned over her crib. The adoption moved through the legal system with agonizing slowness. There were court dates and postponements, background checks and references. Marcus's old foster care records were examined, his employment history scrutinized, his parenting of Emma evaluated. Through it all, Hope remained a foster placement, technically temporary, though she'd already been with them longer than she'd been anywhere else in her short life. The daycare costs were crushing, even with the foster care stipend. Mrs. Rodriguez helped when she could, but she had her own family obligations. Marcus picked up extra shifts when possible, working Saturdays when Emma could watch Hope for a few hours. They were making it work, but barely. Then came an unexpected problem. During a routine check, the pediatrician noticed Hope wasn't meeting certain milestones. She wasn't tracking objects consistently, wasn't responding to sounds the way she should. Tests were ordered. Specialists consulted. The diagnosis was moderate hearing loss in one ear and delayed visual processing, likely from the circumstances of her birth and early abandonment. She would need hearing aids, vision therapy, early intervention services. The costs, even with insurance, were staggering. Marcus sat in the specialist's office, Hope in his arms, feeling the weight of responsibility crushing down. How could he provide what she needed? He was just a garbage man with a high school diploma and a 2-bedroom apartment. Maybe Rebecca had been right. Maybe love wasn't enough. But that evening, when he explained the situation to Emma, his 7-year-old daughter surprised him again. "So Hope needs extra help." "So what?" "Lots of kids need extra help. Timothy in my class has autism and he's the best at math. Sarah has a thing with her legs and she uses crutches, and she's the fastest reader. Hope will just be extra special in different ways." The pure acceptance in Emma's voice reminded Marcus why he was doing this. Because every child deserved that acceptance, that matter-of-fact love that didn't require perfection. The next day, Marcus did something he'd never done before. He asked for help. He went to his supervisor, Tony, explained the situation, and asked if there was any way to get more hours or a raise. Tony listened, then made some calls. Within a week, Marcus had been promoted to route supervisor, a position that came with better pay and benefits that would cover Hope's therapies. The guys took it well mostly. Joey clapped him on the back. "About time, man. You've been carrying this crew for years." Even Crazy Mike, who complained about everything, grudgingly admitted Marcus deserved it. But it was the quiet support that meant the most. Guys showing up with baby supplies they'd found at yard sales. Their wives sending over casseroles so Marcus didn't have to cook after long days. Everyone adjusting their schedules to help cover routes when Marcus had court dates or therapy appointments for Hope. The final adoption hearing was set for a Tuesday in March, 6 months after Marcus had found Hope in the dumpster. The courtroom was small and formal, nothing like the family court Marcus remembered from custody hearings with Emma's mother. Emma wore her best dress again, the same one from meeting Rebecca, though it was getting a little short now. Hope, almost 7 months old, wore a little suit that Mrs. Rodriguez had bought for the occasion. The judge, an older woman with kind eyes behind severe glasses, reviewed the case file. "Mr. Thompson, you're a single father working as a sanitation route supervisor, seeking to adopt a special needs infant you found abandoned while on your route. You have a 7-year-old biological daughter and no family support system beyond neighbors and co-workers. On paper, you're not an ideal candidate." Marcus's heart sank. Emma grabbed his hand. "But," the judge continued, "I've read every letter of support in this file. Your daughter's teacher, your employer, your neighbors, the medical staff who've worked with Hope, even the birth mother's statement. They all say the same thing, that you're a devoted father who's already transformed this baby's life, that your daughter Emma has embraced Hope completely as her sister, that despite financial challenges, you've never missed an appointment or therapy session." Emma raised her hand like she was in school. The judge smiled. "Yes, young lady." "Your Honor," Emma said, standing up straight, "can I say something?" The judge nodded. "My daddy isn't rich or fancy, but he loves us more than anything. He works really hard and gets really dirty so we can have a nice home and good food. He reads to us every night even when he's tired. He learned to do my hair even though he's not good at it. And when he found Hope, he could have just called 911 and left. But he didn't. He stayed with her, and then he kept coming back, and then he brought her home. Because that's what Daddy does. He doesn't leave people behind." The courtroom was silent except for the sound of someone sniffling, possibly the court reporter. The judge looked at the file again, then at Marcus, holding Hope, who was chewing contentedly on his tie, and Emma standing beside them with fierce determination on her young face. "Mr. Thompson, the court finds that while your circumstances may be modest, your commitment to this child is extraordinary. The adoption is approved. Hope Thompson is legally your daughter." Emma let out a whoop that probably violated court protocol, but no one seemed to mind. Hope, startled by the noise, started to cry, and Marcus bounced her gently while tears rolled down his own face. "It's official, baby girl," he whispered to Hope. "You're stuck with us now." As they left the courthouse, officially a family of 3, Emma asked, "Can we celebrate with ice cream?" Marcus looked at his 2 daughters, one who shared his DNA and one who shared his heart, and laughed. "Ice cream for dinner," he declared. "It's not every day you officially become a family." That evening, after too much ice cream and an impromptu dance party in their small living room, Marcus stood in the doorway of the girls' room. Emma had insisted Hope's crib be moved in with her months ago. She was teaching Hope important things, she said, like which stuffed animals were the best guards against bad dreams. Now Emma was asleep, one hand hanging over her bed toward Hope's crib, and Hope was finally sleeping too, her new hearing aid glinting in the nightlight's glow. The apartment was the same one they'd lived in for years. Marcus still had the same job, the same struggles to make ends meet, but everything had changed that October morning when he'd heard crying from a dumpster. One moment of choosing to investigate, choosing to care, had led them here. His phone buzzed with a text from Miss Morrison. "Congratulations again. Rebecca wanted you to know she's doing well, got her GED, starting community college in the fall. She said knowing Hope is loved and safe gave her the strength to try for better. Sometimes we save each other, Marcus thought. Sometimes the garbage man saves the baby, and sometimes the baby saves the teenager, and sometimes a 7-year-old's love saves everyone. It wasn't the family he'd planned, but it was the family they'd chosen, built from discarded pieces and second chances, and the radical belief that everyone deserved to be wanted. The next few months brought unexpected changes. Hope's therapies were working better than anyone had anticipated. With her hearing aid and vision exercises, she was catching up to developmental milestones rapidly. Emma had become something of an expert on infant development, reading library books and watching YouTube videos about helping babies with hearing impairments. She'd learned basic sign language and was teaching it to Hope alongside spoken words. Marcus watched his daughters communicate in this blend of signs and sounds and felt his heart expand in ways he hadn't known possible. One Thursday, Marcus was called to the main office at work. Tony was there with a woman in a business suit he didn't recognize. "Marcus," Tony said, "this is Patricia Klein. She's a producer with Channel 7 News. She wants to talk to you about Hope's story." Marcus immediately tensed. They'd avoided media attention during the adoption process, wanting to protect Hope's privacy. Ms. Klein seemed to sense his reluctance. "Mr. Thompson, I'm not here for a sensational story. We're doing a series on everyday heroes in the city. Your co-workers nominated you, not just for finding Hope, but for what came after, for choosing to raise her, for building this family." Marcus shook his head. "We're not heroes. We're just a regular family doing what families do." "That's exactly why the story matters," Patricia said, "because you're showing that regular people can do extraordinary things, that garbage men and 7-year-olds can change lives." The interview request sat heavy on Marcus's mind. That evening, he discussed it with Emma as they prepared dinner together. "What do you think, baby? Should we tell people about finding Hope?" Emma considered this while carefully cutting vegetables with her safety knife. "Would it help other babies? Like if someone saw it and decided not to throw their baby away? Or if someone saw it and decided to foster kids who need families?" The wisdom of the question stunned Marcus, as Emma's insights often did. When they'd agreed to do the interview, with strict conditions about protecting Hope's identity and Rebecca's privacy, Marcus had thought it would be a small local interest piece. He hadn't expected the story to resonate the way it did. The segment aired 2 weeks later, featuring Marcus in his work uniform talking simply about that October morning. Emma explaining why every baby deserves a family, and footage of Hope laughing as she played with her adaptive toys. Within days, the story had been picked up nationally, not as sensational news, but as something else, a reminder of human goodness in difficult times. The response was overwhelming. Letters arrived at the sanitation department from across the country, some from birth mothers who'd chosen adoption instead of abandonment, thanking Marcus for showing that their babies would be found and loved. Some from foster families, sharing their own stories of unexpected children who'd become beloved family members. Some from adoptees themselves, expressing gratitude that Hope would grow up knowing she was chosen and wanted. But the letter that mattered most came from Rebecca. She'd seen the segment at the shelter and wanted them to know she was doing better. She was in community college studying early childhood education, hoping to work with at-risk youth. Seeing Hope thriving, seeing the family Marcus and Emma had created, had given her hope for her own future. 6 months after the adoption was finalized, Marcus received an unexpected call. A law firm was trying to reach him regarding an inheritance. Confused, certain it was a scam, Marcus almost hung up. But the lawyer persisted, explaining that a viewer of their news story, an elderly woman named Dorothy Chen, who'd recently passed, had left a trust fund for Hope's education and medical needs. The amount was modest by some standards, but life-changing for them, enough to cover Hope's therapies, Emma's college fund, and even some breathing room in their monthly budget. Dorothy's letter, included with the trust documents, explained that she'd been abandoned as a baby in China, adopted by American missionaries, and had lived a full life because someone had chosen to save her. She wanted to pay that forward to another abandoned child who'd been chosen. Marcus sat in their small living room, surrounded by toys and homework and the controlled chaos of raising two children, and cried. Not from sadness, but from the overwhelming realization that their small act of choosing hope had rippled outward in ways they'd never imagined. Emma found him there, climbed into his lap despite being almost too big for it now, and asked why he was crying. Sometimes people cry when they're grateful, he explained. When they realize that doing the right thing creates more good than they ever expected. 2 years passed in what felt like both an instant and a lifetime. Hope was approaching her 3rd birthday, a whirlwind of energy despite her hearing aid and thick glasses that made her eyes look endearingly owlish. She communicated in a mixture of speech and sign language, her vocabulary exploding daily thanks to Emma's constant tutoring and Marcus's patient repetition. The apartment that had once seemed adequate now felt impossibly small, with 2 growing girls, toys everywhere, and therapy equipment taking up precious space. But the Dorothy Chen Trust had allowed them to save slowly for something better. And Marcus had been promoted to district supervisor, overseeing multiple routes with a salary that finally felt like enough. It was a Tuesday morning when everything changed again. Marcus was reviewing route schedules in his office, a cramped space at the depot but his own space nonetheless, when Tony knocked. "There's someone here to see you. Says it's about hope." Marcus's blood ran cold. Even after 2 years, even with the adoption finalized and sealed, he still feared someone would try to take her away. But the woman waiting in the break room wasn't a social worker or lawyer. She was elegant, probably mid-60s, with carefully styled blonde hair and clothes that cost more than Marcus made in a month. When she saw him, she stood, and he noticed her hands were trembling. "Mr. Thompson? I'm Diana Palmer, Rebecca's grandmother, Hope's biological great-grandmother." Marcus felt the world tilt. Rebecca had said she had no family. Diana seemed to read his thoughts. "Rebecca doesn't know I exist. Her mother, my daughter Melissa, told everyone I was dead. It was easier than explaining that I'd cut her off when she chose drugs over getting help. I've been searching for Rebecca since I learned Melissa died 5 years ago. The private investigator found her through the news story about Hope." She pulled out a tissue, dabbing at her eyes. "I saw the interview, saw what Rebecca had become, what she'd survived, and I saw Hope. She looks just like Rebecca did as a baby, just like Melissa before the drugs took hold." Marcus didn't know what to say. What did this woman want? Was she going to challenge the adoption, try to claim Hope? Diana continued, her voice steadier. "I'm not here to disrupt your family. I can see Hope is loved and thriving. But I've spent 20 years regretting cutting off my daughter, even though she was destroying herself and everyone around her. I can't fix that. But I could help Rebecca, if she'll let me. And I wanted to meet the man who saved my great-granddaughter's life." She paused, pulling out an envelope. "I wrote to Rebecca at the shelter address from the news story. She agreed to meet me. We've been talking for 6 months now. She's remarkable, considering everything she's survived. She's in her 2nd year of college, working part-time, living in a small apartment. She talks about Hope constantly, about how knowing Hope is safe and loved gave her the strength to build a life." The revelation sat heavy between them. Marcus thought of Rebecca, alone all this time, believing she had no family when her grandmother had been searching for her. The cruelty of Melissa's lie, born from addiction and spite, had stolen years they couldn't get back. "Does Rebecca want to see Hope?" Marcus asked carefully. Diana shook her head. "She says she can't, that it would hurt too much and confuse Hope." "She's probably right. But she wanted me to meet you, to thank you properly, and to give you this." Diana handed him a second envelope, thicker than the first. Inside were photos. Rebecca as a baby, looking remarkably like Hope. Melissa before addiction, young and bright-eyed. Diana herself as a young mother. 4 generations of women, connected by blood and separated by circumstances. "There's also a letter for Hope," Diana explained. "For when she's older." Rebecca wanted her to have family medical history, to know where she came from, and I added my own letter, explaining our family's mistakes so Hope might learn from them. Marcus accepted the envelope, understanding the weight of what was being entrusted to him. Would you like to meet Hope? Not to tell her who you are, just to see her? Diana's composure finally cracked. Could I? Would that be appropriate? Marcus thought of Hope, who loved meeting new people, who charmed everyone at the grocery store and the park. She deserved to know she had family beyond their small unit, even if she couldn't fully understand it yet. Come to her birthday party this Saturday. We're having it at the park. You can be Miss Diana, a friend of the family. That's not even a lie. Saturday arrived gray and drizzly, but nothing could dampen Hope's excitement about her party. She ran around the park pavilion in her special birthday dress, her hearing aid decorated with tiny stick-on gems Emma had applied that morning, her glasses constantly sliding down her nose as she played. Emma, now nearly 10, helped Marcus set up, arranging the cake she'd helped bake and the presents from their small circle of friends. Mrs. Rodriguez was there with her grandchildren, Tony, and some of the crew from work with their families, and a few children from Hope's special needs playgroup with their parents. When Diana arrived, carrying an elegantly wrapped gift, Hope immediately appointed herself the greeting committee. "Hi, I'm Hope and I'm 3 today," she announced, holding up 3 fingers. "Are you here for my party?" Diana knelt to Hope's level, her eyes bright with unshed tears. "I am here for your party. Happy birthday, Hope. I'm Ms. Diana." Hope studied her with the intense focus she brought to new experiences. "You have pretty hair. It's like Rebecca's in the picture. Daddy showed me. She was my tummy mommy, but couldn't take care of me, so Daddy and Emma became my forever family." The matter-of-fact explanation, clearly rehearsed from conversations Marcus had had with her about her origins, made Diana grip her purse tighter. "That's right, sweetheart. And your Daddy and Emma must love you very much." "They do. And I love them too." "Do you want to see my cake? Emma made it, and it has a rainbow inside." As Hope dragged Diana toward the pavilion, chattering non-stop, Marcus saw Rebecca standing at the edge of the park. She hadn't said she was coming. He walked over, leaving Emma to supervise Hope's enthusiastic tour. Rebecca looked healthier than the last time he'd seen her. Her hair was clean and styled, she'd gained needed weight, and there was a steadiness to her that hadn't been there before. "I shouldn't be here," she said immediately, but Diana said she was coming, and I just needed to see her, from a distance. "I won't interfere." Marcus looked back at the party, at Hope now trying to teach Diana some sort of complicated hand-clapping game. "You gave her life twice, once when you had her, and again when you let her go. You have every right to see her happy." They stood together, watching Hope play. She was laughing at something Emma said, her whole body shaking with giggles, her glasses going crooked again. Diana was helping her straighten them, gentle and careful. The scene was beautifully ordinary, a child's birthday party in a public park, and entirely extraordinary given the paths that had led them all here. "She calls you Daddy," Rebecca said softly. "In my head, I always wondered what she'd call whoever raised her. Daddy fits. You're a good father." Marcus thought of all the nights he'd doubted himself, wondered if love and determination were enough to make up for what he couldn't provide. "Your grandmother told me you're studying early childhood education, working with at-risk kids." Rebecca nodded, her eyes never leaving Hope. "Figured I should use what I know, how to survive when nobody thinks you will, how to keep hope when everything seems hopeless." No pun intended about her name. She paused. "That trust fund from the old Chinese lady? She left one for me too, smaller, but enough to finish school without loans. Her lawyer said she wanted to help the whole family, blood and chosen." Marcus felt surprise, then warmth. Dorothy Chen's generosity continuing to ripple outward. "Rebecca, would you like to come to the party? Not as her birth mother, just as Rebecca, a friend of the family." Rebecca shook her head quickly. "I can't. It would hurt too much. But thank you. For everything. For saving her, raising her, loving her. For giving me the peace of knowing she's exactly where she should be." She left before Hope could spot her, walking quickly toward the bus stop. Diana found Marcus a few minutes later while Emma was helping Hope open presents. She saw Rebecca, Diana said. It wasn't a question. She wanted to see Hope. "I understand. Diana touched his arm gently. "You're a good man, Mr. Thompson. Thank you for allowing me this, for letting me be part of her day, even in this small way." Over the next months, Diana became a regular presence in their lives. Ms. Diana, who came for Sunday dinners, who babysat when Marcus had to work late, who helped with school pickups when complicated logistics required an extra adult. Hope adored her, this grandmother figure who read stories with different voices and knew how to French braid hair in ways that amazed Emma. Marcus and Diana developed an unexpected friendship. She'd lived her own story of loss and regret, of watching her daughter destroy herself with drugs, of making the hard choice to cut contact for her own survival. She understood something about difficult choices and imperfect families. "You saved each other," Diana said one evening, watching Hope and Emma perform an elaborate play they'd created. "You saved Hope from the dumpster. Emma saved Hope from loneliness. Hope saved Rebecca from despair, and Rebecca's story saved me from dying without trying to make amends." The interconnections were complex, a web of salvation that had started with a baby's cry in the darkness. Emma, now old enough to understand more of the complexities, asked Marcus one night, "Do you think Hope will be angry when she learns everything? About Rebecca and Diana and all of it?" Marcus considered his thoughtful daughter, growing up so fast. "Maybe. She has a right to all her feelings about it, but I hope she'll understand that everyone did their best with what they had. Rebecca loved her enough to let go. Diana loved Rebecca enough to keep searching, and we loved Hope enough to hold on." Emma nodded, satisfied. "And Hope loves us enough to be our family even though we're kind of weird and don't match." "That's true too," Marcus laughed. "We're definitely weird and definitely don't match." The call came on a Thursday evening, 3 years after the adoption. Marcus was helping Hope with her kindergarten homework, special worksheets adapted for her visual processing issues, while Emma practiced piano in the next room. His phone rang with an unknown number. "Mr. Thompson, this is Dr. Patterson from Memorial Hospital. Rebecca Palmer has been in an accident. She's asking for you." The drive to the hospital was familiar but different. This time he wasn't saving a baby, but perhaps saying goodbye to the young woman who'd given them that baby. Rebecca was conscious but badly hurt. A car accident that wasn't her fault, but had left her with internal injuries the doctors were still assessing. Diana was already there, holding Rebecca's hand. Rebecca's eyes found Marcus immediately. "Couldn't leave without seeing you one more time. Without saying thank you properly. The doctors say I'll probably be fine, but probably isn't definitely, and I needed you to know something." She paused, breathing carefully around the pain. "I'm okay now. I'm in school, I have Diana, I have a future, and it's all because you gave me peace about Hope. You gave me permission to not be destroyed by giving her up." Marcus took her other hand. "You're going to be fine. You're too stubborn not to be, and Hope needs you to be out there, living proof that birth mothers can survive and thrive." Rebecca smiled weakly. "Tell her I love her, when she's old enough. Tell her I think about her every day, that giving her to you was the best thing I ever did, even better than finding Diana or finishing school or any of it." Rebecca did survive, though recovery was long and difficult. Diana moved her into her house temporarily, providing the care Rebecca had never received from her own mother. Marcus and the girls visited regularly, Hope still not understanding the connection, but sensing these people were important to Daddy. The visits were bittersweet for Rebecca, watching Hope grow and thrive, but they were also healing, confirming again and again that her sacrifice had been worthwhile. 5 years after finding Hope in the dumpster, Marcus stood in his small office at the sanitation department, looking at a photo from Hope's first day of first grade. She wore her uniform proudly, her glasses clean for once, her hearing aid decorated with tiny superhero stickers, her smile enormous despite missing front teeth. Emma, now 13, stood beside her, protective and proud. Joey knocked and entered. "Boss, there's something you need to see. Out by the trucks." Marcus followed, expecting some equipment problem or scheduling conflict. Instead, he found his entire crew standing by a new garbage truck. On the side, in professional lettering, it read Hope's Truck, with a small plaque underneath, in honor of Marcus Thompson. who saved a baby and showed us all that heroes drive garbage trucks. Tony stepped forward, embarrassed but determined. The guys all chipped in. Figured if you're going to keep supervising routes, might as well have your own truck, one that means something. Marcus couldn't speak past the lump in his throat. These men, who society often overlooked, who did the dirty work that kept the city running, had created this tribute to a moment that had changed everything. That evening, at dinner in their new apartment, still modest but with 3 bedrooms, thanks to Marcus's promotions and careful saving, Hope asked the question he'd been expecting for years. "Daddy, why did Rebecca give me away?" Emma looked up from her homework, alert to the significance of the moment. Marcus had practiced this answer 100 times, but now, faced with Hope's earnest 5-year-old face, he spoke from the heart. "Rebecca loved you so much that she wanted you to have things she couldn't give you. A safe home, enough food, parents who could take care of you all the time. Sometimes love means holding on tight, and sometimes it means letting go so someone can fly. Like when we let the butterflies go after they came out of their cocoons," Hope asked, referencing a recent school project. "Exactly like that. Rebecca knew you were meant to fly, and she couldn't be the one to help you do it. But Emma and I could, so she made sure we found you." Hope considered this with the deep thought she brought to important matters. "So I have lots of people who love me? Rebecca and Diana, and you and Emma and Mrs. Rodriguez, and everyone." "So many people," Marcus confirmed. "You are surrounded by love, baby girl. Some from people who are close, some from people who have to love from far away, but all real, all yours." That night, after both girls were asleep, Marcus stood on the small balcony of their apartment, looking out at the city lights. Somewhere out there, Rebecca was studying for finals. Diana was probably reading in her elegant home, finding peace in her reconnection with her granddaughter. The city was full of stories like theirs, full of found families and second chances, and love that didn't follow conventional patterns. His phone buzzed with a text from Rebecca. It was a photo of her college acceptance letter for a master's program in social work. The message said simply, "Hope gave me hope. Thank you for giving her yours." Marcus texted back, "Thank you for giving her to us." They were an unlikely family, connected by a moment of crisis in a hospital dumpster, bound by choices that had seemed impossible but had led to something beautiful. The next morning, Marcus's alarm went off at 3:30 a.m. He had routes to supervise, trucks to coordinate, a city's waste to manage. But first, he checked on his girls. Emma, growing into a thoughtful teenager who still made room in her life for her little sister. Hope, spreading like a starfish in her bed, her glasses safely on the nightstand, her hearing aid charging for another day of kindergarten adventures. They were his world, these 2 girls who called him Daddy, who had taught him that families could be built from the most unexpected materials. As he prepared for his day, Marcus thought about the butterfly metaphor Hope had mentioned. They'd all been transforming, all becoming something new, from discarded to cherished, from broken to whole, from alone to together. The garbage man who'd saved a baby, the baby who'd saved a family, the family who'd saved each other. It wasn't a fairy tale ending because it wasn't an ending at all. It was life, continuing daily with school lunches and therapy appointments, homework and bedtime stories. Ordinary moments made extraordinary by the simple fact that they'd chosen each other. Hope's truck rumbled to life in the depot, ready for another day of work. And Marcus Thompson, sanitation supervisor and father of 2, headed into the dawn, knowing that sometimes the most valuable things in life were found in the most unexpected places. Sometimes treasure came wrapped in a hospital blanket and left in a dumpster. Sometimes love arrived crying in the darkness, waiting for someone to hear, someone to care, someone to say, "You matter, you're wanted, you're home."